Miz has still got the US Championship, even though they never acknowledge it, which just goes to show. But he doesn't need a belt, Taker. He's over as over can be, I suppose, after so many years. And I think people are kind of privileged to still have him around these days. He doesn't need the belt gimmick, I don't think. But you never know with WWE. They might give him one last run, or they might have a Mania to build next year. Who knows? But he doesn't need a belt.
Speaking of one last run, Shawn Michaels, I was hoping since 22, WrestleMania 23, that they might take a shot. I know he's on the reduced schedule, but shouldn't Shawn Michaels have had that belt one more time? Every guy has had it. Every month it changes. I mean, why? Why not?
Yeah, I thought I would love to see him take the WWE title actually, for old time's sake, and they never did it. And they never. Another angle they could have really done was split the whole DX thing fully once and for all. The sad remains of what it was, and the merchandising machine that it just turned into. And do a Trips and Michaels, just a big send off. And if there was a belt involved there, it would have been really, really cool. But we get Taker and Michaels too, which was pretty okay, I suppose.
Let's take some of your comments. Ace Crusher says Jack Swagger isn't a bad worker. Whether he'll be used well as champion is another story. Swagger's ECW title reign produced some very good matches with Christian.
Yeah, and he had a great match with Cena too, actually, and really stepped it up. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah, he is a good worker. I mean, and he is getting that push from his background, being the All-American American, and a big deal apparently in the States. And I think you get to go to the White House and all that, isn't it? And it's a whole amateur wrestling background. So yeah, they're taking, just like Kurt Angle, they're taking a proper and real well-rounded wrestler. Not just a David Otunga or a these guys that just jumped in off the ship kind of buzz, which they need to do. But it's just maybe because he's so young and he's a little bit green with the mic skills and not exactly the best look, I don't think, generally, no offense to the guy, but yeah, he can certainly work, I think.
His look needs a bit of tweaking, but he reminds me of that early Kurt Angle from the 2000s when Kurt Angle was the WWF champion. And indeed, Kurt went through a lot of changes. He had that head shave, and that changed it altogether for him. He certainly seemed even better at that point. But to have a legit guy like that, an amateur wrestler, I don't know how far he got. Did he win any titles in amateur wrestling?
Jack Swagger?
Jack.
Yeah, I think he was. I'm sure he did. Yeah, I mean, to be an All-American would probably mean, I don't know anything about amateur wrestling, to be honest with you, but I'm sure.
Maybe he was AAU champion like Iron Cheek. AAU perhaps somewhere in there. Certainly that's another one we could and should wiki. But indeed, if you're in the chat room and you fancy letting us know, do indeed do that. I mean, Swagger is a topic that's going to be on everyone's lips for the next couple of weeks. I'm so interested to see how long he goes with that belt. I would often think that when someone like Jericho, a big time heel, hands off the belt to a heel, that perhaps they're jockeying that younger heel to be smashed by a big time babyface. Do you think John Morrison could have a chance?
I would like to see that. I'd love to see Jomo get the big strong push. Still, he needs a little bit of work on those mic skills. I don't know what it is about John Morrison and when he gets on the mic, but something's not right. I think he falls into Cena territory. It's just not convincing enough. I don't know if it's the voice or what, but he's going to be a big player, I think, John Morrison, going forward. But the position he's in, we spoke about this earlier off camera, with R-Truth, we wondered why he is in that position. Is he in the doghouse, or what is the story with John Morrison? So if anyone out there knows anything that we don't, fill us in, because we're getting a bit worried about Jomo.
What's wrong with John Morrison's build right now is they're putting him with R-Truth. He doesn't need to be with anybody. When he was Johnny Nitro, I rated him highly. Certainly with MNM and Melina, that was another fantastic combo. Yes, those were the young days, but so much promise was shown back then. And indeed, when the Rockstar properly launched himself on ECW and had that name change from Nitro to Morrison and came out with that Rockstar gimmick, it was big stuff. And I thought that his mix-up with CM Punk in the ECW Championship back then would eventually lead him to the main title picture. I mean, you do have to wonder, are these guys in the doghouse? Because they have handed the belt to almost everyone now, and with the likes of Swagger getting the belt a few years ago, very surprised by CM Punk winning it. We're just not going to be surprised anymore. But why not John Morrison?
Yeah, and why not Shelton? I mean, chipped how many times at this stage? And surely he must be thinking to himself, what is my future? They haven't given me that money in the bank opportunity, and the US title dreams are crushed because The Miz has that title, and he still has the unified tag titles, and no real acknowledgement of the US Championship, and of course Drew with the Intercontinental title, and that's a good home for it. I think at the moment he impresses me more and more every week. I have to say, Drew McIntyre, you're growing on me.
Drew McIntyre, big time in SmackDown at the moment, and certainly doing very well in his career. Drew McIntyre, I think, squashed Matt Hardy this week. I believe the match didn't even start. Drew McIntyre pretty much just railroaded him, and that was it for Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy taking that role so often now, and indeed we had the implosion of a long-standing tag team, Crime Time, JTG and Shad. They decided to, well, maybe only one of them decided to call it quits. Perhaps the office decided they had enough, and indeed looking like they want to push the bigger guy. Indeed, was it JTG who was on the bad end of a beatdown?
Yeah, I think it was. JTG was on the bad end, and Gaspard coming out on top. Now here's where we get into Ezekiel Jackson territory once again. Where is this going to end up? I mean, it's going to be one of those cases, as we described earlier, as somebody end up in the Marty Jannetty of the two, but Crime Time and imploding. I mean, we haven't seen stuff like this since the Mega Powers, and a sad day for SmackDown, a sad day for wrestling fans. I wonder, could Jesse and our Grandmaster and JTG set up a new kind of hip-hop gimmick, because that's one more tag team that we are down. So officially we've got the Hart Dynasty and probably a couple of team ofs. Would I be right?
I think there's a high possibility you've called at least one of the yet unwritten storylines when you mention about a pairing of Jesse, who's now Slam Master J, and JTG. That's a perfect combo. They've already been seen together. Maybe that's a spoiler. Apologies, but either way, I mean, it's not rocket science, and that's a perfect call, I think. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, do they push the bigger guy? Does Shad get the push, and does JTG go down? Certainly I think those two guys at least are going to be feuding for a couple of weeks, but it just seemed to be that they came out of this Crime Time feud out of nowhere. Maybe they just said, right, they weren't ready for Showmaze at WrestleMania, and we had to stick in Truth and Morrison. Perhaps then they decided they were going a different way. But yeah, Crime Time imploding, and that's about it for Crime Time so far. We're going to see some matches, I'm sure, in the future that probably won't blow us away.
I doubt it very much.
We'll have to wait and see. Certainly stand to be proved wrong. And indeed, now to some more of our chatters. We're talking now about SmackDown, and indeed that's paused. Well, let's just have a look at what some of the people are saying. We have Bosco X GTX Band. He says William Regal for WWE champion. He also says you will never beat the old wrestling. The new wrestling is too predictable. Bring back Mick Foley and indeed The Rock. So some fans there again of old school, just like ourselves. We got someone saying Shelton is wasted, which is a very good point. Shelton Benjamin, of course, got the brush off from the new world heavyweight champion Jack Swagger this week, as well he passed him in the hallway, and indeed Shelton looked kind of a little bit disheveled. I'm sure he's wondering, even in real life, why haven't I gotten that belt yet?